Good evening, you're watching The Big Question. I'm Sanjana. India's real money gaming sector, once hailed as a $2 billion sunrise industry, projected to grow to $5 billion by 2030, has just been dealt its biggest blow yet. A sweeping ban meant to curb addiction and financial ruin has effectively knocked out the business model behind fantasy sports, poker, and other online games. But the shockwaves go far beyond just gaming companies. Fintech lenders, digital payment aggregators, marketing agencies, even sports sponsorships and allied tech services, all of them tied to their growth to the boom in this space. For every app developer, there were payment processors, advertisers, influencers, and customer support staff riding the same wave. Today, they're suddenly staring at sudden disruption. The government's justification is stark. Rising addiction, mounting losses of personal savings, cases of money laundering, tax evasion, and even national security concerns. And importantly, New Delhi has rejected the old distinction between games of skill and chance. To the state, the risks outweigh the rewards. So tonight we ask the big question, will India's real money gaming ban protect consumers, or will it cripple a $5 billion ecosystem of jobs, allied industries, and innovation? Joining me this evening are Aditya Mishra, MD and CEO of CIEL HR, on what this means for jobs and employment. Sachin Taparia, Chairman and Founder of Local Circles, bringing us the consumer pulse. Khushbu Jain, partner at ARC Legal and Supreme Court advocate, on the legal and enforcement challenges ahead. Good evening to all of you, and thanks so much for joining us on this extremely significant and crucial discussion that we've been having for, I think, close to 10 days now. So let's begin with the ripple effect, because this isn't just about gaming apps. It's about an entire allied ecosystem that's suddenly frozen. Aditya Mishra, from HR and employment data, how many direct and indirect jobs do you see at risk, not just in gaming firms, but we're looking at payments, we're looking at advertisement, we're looking at tech services, and even sports sponsorships?
Yeah, I think it will have a huge impact in the entire ecosystem that we take. So one part of it is, of course, the gaming, and as you rightly said, there are payments and influencers and other people connected with their sports sponsorships, was very big. So now I think, I mean, it's left for anybody's guess that how many would be really lost. However, just as a rough estimate, a lot of these people would probably find other opportunities in the tech sector and other kinds of opportunity for the sponsorships and influencer. They have to find other kind of possibilities. And we as an economy since have been growing, I don't think that people are suddenly going to become jobless and they will have a difficult life. Maybe immediately there will be difficulties for maybe half a lakh people. However, in the long run, the overall ecosystem will evolve. We have had challenges in the past, and this is one more challenge. I am confident that the economy will be able to take care of it in some way.
And we're already seeing some kind of pivots already, with either moving to, a payment service. So these companies are, making plan B and good, mitigation and crisis plans on to what to do with that tech as opposed to using it for gaming. The government is defending this ban as a move to protect Indians from addictions, loss of savings. But do people on the ground see it that way? Sachin Taparia, your consumer surveys have tracked sentiment closely. Are people relieved by this ban, or do they feel deprived of legitimate entertainment and income opportunities?
So we've been tracking this for 5 years, Sanjana, and it really, came into the mainstream when COVID had hit, because people had a lot of time on their hands, and in many cases, the jobs and livelihood were on hold or lost. And what we basically learned through gathering consumer data at that time was a lot of issues were actually happening, where people were losing their savings, where addiction was happening, where they had left their mainstream business even after COVID restrictions were lifted, and they were into online gaming and real money gaming. So I think the move from that standpoint is strongly supported by public at large. Of course, if you go to those gamers, some of them would still want these platforms to operate and continue. But by and large, the public is very, very strongly supportive of this move. People wanted restrictions on advertising. We had escalated that. That did not happen for 4 years, 4.5 years. They wanted SMSs to be stopped. That also did not happen. So we are very glad that this move has been brought about. By and large, nearly 8 in 10 citizens, if you survey, would basically be saying that they support this move, because these were the kind of numbers that had come in our surveys that we had done in 23 and 24. So I think absolutely right move. From the standpoint of the ecosystem and the job disruption for those who are in the industry, like my previous speaker said, I think they'll have to find alternate mechanisms. You're moving away from real money gaming, but you're not moving away from online gaming, right? So they'll have to find ways where maybe such platforms can support other brands in gamification, other industries around payments, wealth management, and all those things. So I think that evolution will happen.
You've been tracking this. You've been tracking this for 5 years. So just as a follow-up, has online and real money gaming also been around for 5 years, or a little over that?
It has been. It has been. So I think these online platforms offering real money gaming have been around since 2020 at least, if not before. And they really came into the mainstream, where a large number of people, and literally I think one of the surveys basically said that 12% of households in the country had somebody engaging in these games back in 2021. So it was that prevalent. That's a lot of households if you think about it. And therefore, they have been in existence. People have been using them regularly, the ones who are regular users of it post-COVID. So I think it's something that has been around, and it is something that has been having negative effects, basically, where all those issues, whether it is addiction, whether it is financial loss, have been happening. We've also studied a lot of dark patterns around these online gaming platforms, and they are also very, very prevalent.
Okay.
So there is gambling, there is manipulation, there is other practices which aren't really that transparent, that have been going around such platforms, and hence I think it's a very, very timely and a much needed move.
Okay, all right. I think we'll go into the dark patterns, but I want to actually explore the legal grey zone, because for years, Khushbu, courts drew a line between skill and chance. But the government now has brushed that distinction aside as well. Do you think that this blanket ban will hold up legally? And more importantly, can it actually be enforced? Or will it drive the industry underground, creating bigger risks for consumers?
See, that differentiation which was there between game of chance and game of skill, which was continuously being put across by various courts or by our judgments, was that game of chance is something which is illegal, gambling, and game of skill, which is gaming. Now, because of this game of chance and game of skill as a differentiation being legal and illegal, the only thing, or the majority of the companies, what they were doing is they were misusing this entire space and making a game of chance, also giving a blanket cover up as game of skill, and they were playing. And because of that gray area which was created by this differentiation between game of chance and game of skill, is where this industry could flourish to an extent that it is becoming unimaginable of number of users, number of money involved into it. And that's where we are seeing that how this industry has grown in last 5 years. It has been an unimaginable exponential growth. Now, the only problem that came over here is because of that gray area, it was difficult for law enforcement agencies to practically catch hold of these people. And by the time the realization happened that this is absolutely illegal or a gambling company which is happening, they would have done their job and they would have just disappeared from the entire, the space of internet. That's where we are coming in, that whatever the money money involved in any kind of games online is something which is illegal, so that gray area which created that entire black space, that gray converted into a black space, can be eliminated. Now the second question of yours that is coming up is the part of implementation, whether this complete ban gets into an implementation, because we have seen in the past that absolute ban is never a solution to anything, because then it converts into a parallel industry which is under the radar. Very valid question, but here you have to see that under the radar was already created, and it was so big that it was becoming difficult, or to put across that it was becoming impossible for catching hold of these platforms at the right time where it is involved, and the number of amount that is lost by people, going to an extent that people are committing suicide, is something which cannot be ignored. And that's where coming up a part of online ban. Now, any challenges? Yes, there would be challenges in implementing this. But I think looking at those challenges, if you'll see, there are three parts in the act. The three parts are: one, anybody who is offering these games, online real money games. Second, anybody associated with it. Third, any of the advertisers or any of the influencers associated with it. And fourth, that any of the payment gateway or bank associated. So practically the entire circle is something which will be punished by this, so that not to leave any gap. Now you may say that I can still offer these games, and that's where I will ask money not under the game radar but somebody else. And I think that's where the implementation will come, and we have to see that how this act is implemented by the law enforcement agencies, that they are there in the world of internet checking at the real time if something is there or if any misuse is happening or not. Because if they don't implement this, then bringing up this law becomes of no use.
Right. Okay, so now we arrive at the trade-off then, which is a booming $5 billion industry with jobs and tax revenues on one side, and the government's, very rightly so, consumer protection mandate on the other. Aditya Mishra, could this ban deter investors and startups from entering other high-growth tech sectors, fearing sudden policy shocks?
No, I don't think so, because globally this has been sort of a practice that legal ecosystems need to be strong, rigorous, and they need to be practiced, and consumer rights are to be protected. This is a kind of a sort of a global standard, and it's good that India has risen up to the occasion and gone for this. And today, the setback which some of these companies are facing, I'm not talking about those who intentionally sort of try to exploit this as an opportunity to just make money overnight, and they would probably vanish, and they should. However, the companies with solid fundamentals, with strong technical talent, with an intention to comply with the law of the land, and to create value for its consumers, as well as in that process create value for the stakeholders, are going to prosper. Real money gaming is off, but there are other forms of esports, and esports as a habit, or as a sort of a part of people's daily lives, is going to continue. It has been on the rise for the last few years, and the kind of socio-economic scenario through which our country and many parts of the world are passing through, this is going to rise. I would say that this online gaming, as broadly speaking, as a sector, will continue to remain attractive for investors, and I don't see this as any setback for the investment climate.
All right, okay, that's reassuring then. Sachin Taparia, would stricter regulation like age restrictions, deposit caps, KYC enforcement, would that have worked better than an outright ban?
I don't think so, Sanjana, in this particular case. See, I think one of the big issues that I feel is, it kind of goes into the last question you asked the previous speaker.
Right.
Basically, one of the questions that venture capitalists and other investors need to ask themselves when investing in India is, whatever business that they are investing in, is that actually good for society and public at large? And I think that's the question that's been missing from the venture capital investing that has taken place in India in the last 10 to 15 years. So I think, and many times the approach has been, let's invest it, the regulations will come along. right? I don't think that's the right approach. So I think the thought process that is this something that is good for public at large, right? And of course there is profit associated with it, and other commercial interests. But by and large, any business that is being invested in should pass that particular test. So therefore, I think this is a correction that was long due, because at the end of it, if you have extraction, if you have manipulation, if you have, under the guise of entertainment, right, it's not okay. So I think that's something that had to be treated with something like this, rather than, some kind of a KYC or some kind of, other additional information, because something is wrong at the core. So I'm very glad that this has actually happened the way it has happened. It's just that it should have happened, several years ago, so the companies would have not invested so much capital. This should have been done right in 2021 instead of waiting till 2025. But nevertheless, it's happened now, so I think we'll correct from here.
Yeah, I perhaps think that nobody maybe had the idea that it would evolve and grow into what it has become today, right? Because even consumer behavior and trends have changed so much. Because like you rightly said, Sachin, this started during, it got popularized during a pandemic. And once we're out of it, our behaviors may have changed, but the old tastes have kind of remained. Khushbu, does this move set a precedent for the state to pull the plug on any digital sector that it deems harmful, even at the cost of business certainty?
See, I think this comes with the underlining fact, which everybody has to remember, that a societal harm every time has to supersede economic cost. You have to look into the societal harm, and for that you have to also look into the aspect that government is entasked to make sure that they maintain that that environment which which creates that none of the situation outweigh the societal harm which can be caused by any of the platform, any digital platform for that matter. And I think government has done that in the past. If you'll see the way the government has been active when it comes to digital lending apps, when it comes to trading apps, and the way they have blocked so many websites and applications on internet and continue to do so. I think they are also trying to catch up with this, and the fact lies that a policy objective of any government has to be very clear, and it has been seen that it is very clear that it is to prevent any kind of addiction, any kind of family distress or a fraud or a potential national security risk that is coming up, which has to take a precedence over any kind of sectoral job retention or recreation or any of the industry which is getting harmed. And you will also have to look back, because you started with the question of game of chance and skill, and you have to see that it was never a legal part. It was always a gray area that was created, and that gray area misuse and the aspect of which state allows you what. I think that's where government has first time entered into a space where they have created a complete proper law when it comes to gaming industry. Otherwise, it was always an interpretation and a state-wise leeway which was being given when it comes to gaming platforms offline, and that was being utilized as an online space. But the impact when it comes to an offline and online has been seen in last 5 years, and that's where government has entered. I'm glad it is little late, but I'm glad that government has entered into, because as I'm putting it across again, that the paramount objective of any government worldwide has to be that it has to look into protection of its people and maintaining public order. It can have even if it goes to a length where it can disrupt the entire industry, and be it here as a gaming industry. And we have to also look into, Sanjana, that it's not disrupting the gaming industry. They are talking about nourishing the society, the games which are in the social part. They are wanting to push when it comes to esports. Only where money is involved is where they are entering. So all these gaming industry can have a fee. They can change their game when it comes to games which are for the societal good, games which are when it comes to esports. So not that this industry is completely killed and all those jobs can be taken away, but the way that money was being taken, and we don't even have a real number of amount of money that people have lost and the people who have committed suicide, because whatever number we have is half which is reported or somehow or the other way. Once we get the official number, the real official number or the actual official number, is where all of us will thank the government to act upon it the way they have acted upon it.
All right, fair. But let's also, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here. I'm cognizant and but definitely all for something that does protect the consumer. But let's also not forget that this was a big GST contributor, right? Many states leaned on revenues from online gaming. Sachin Taparia, does the consumer really benefit if the government loses thousands of crores in GST revenue, which could have been spent on public services?
The consumer really doesn't care, Sanjana. GST revenue loss in one place can be offset by GST revenue gain in another place. So I think it is what the consumer cares about is that is the family coming apart because two kids in the family are addicted to online gaming. That's what people care about. So I think it is an absolute right move. I understand the industry disruption conversation. The point here is that they have to evolve their models. You look at audio industry, streaming music, right? Everybody, you and me and everybody out there, including young kids, they're all paying for subscription. They are paying a monthly fee to an audio music streaming platform and they're enjoying the music. If the games are of such high quality that people really enjoy those games, there can be no money involved, right, in terms of betting, and you can still have a lot of people in this country pay a subscription for a gaming platform. So I don't think it's an issue of online gaming shutting in India. I think it's this betting and gambling that is going to be shut, which is an absolute right move.
So globally, countries from the US to Singapore are regulating online gaming, okay? This is not just India. They regulate it, they don't ban it. India has probably taken the hardest route. Khushbu, does this put India at odds with global best practices, and could it drive players to offshore to apps that are registered in friendlier jurisdictions?
No. See, if you look into it, we have been one of the largest consumer base when it comes to gaming companies. And if you'll see, the worldwide companies wanted to do business. The gaming companies wanted to do business in India because of the user base that India offers. And with that, so many offshore companies were still providing. And this act is not applicable to just the companies who are originating from India. It is applicable to the entities which are registered offshore and providing any kind of services, any kind of offering when it comes to online money game in India. So anything which is offered to Indians in Indian jurisdiction, whether you're registered in India or you're registered offshore, is banned. And I think it's a very solid move, and we will see that other countries is going to follow, because at last it's the government who has to look into it. And it's not just India, it's countries worldwide which are grappling with this issue of one, which is a gaming industry wanting to flourish, bringing in a lot of aspects when it comes to addictiveness and other illegal means into it. And third, there is a whole world of criminals who are making these platforms because they're taking help of that, addiction, and also taking help when it comes to easy bait that they would give you two times they will return you hefty money, and third time they'll disappear, is where they're making best use of it, and they're disappearing after they get a lot of money. So to challenge all these aspects is where India is coming in, and we have seen the numbers. You have to see the numbers coming in. A country has to act upon, and we should be happy that so many regulations India try to follow others when it comes to, let's say, privacy norms or other norms for that matter. Here India has that nothing doing, no revenue part of it, not to do when it comes to country earning money or anything else. Let's go to an aspect that for the first time it's people first. For the benefit of people is where we're going to act upon, because every policy is made not looking into how much money a government can earn, but how it has to benefit when it comes to people, when it comes to society of that country. So I think this is one bill which is in its sense talking about for which usually the policy or the bill should be made. So it has to, you have to see into that objective part, and we should see that other countries should follow that aspect. Governing part, everybody's talking about that there should have been a regulation, and you're also coming up with that also. And it is a valid question anybody can ask, that why not regulate this space? Why not bring in some aspects where you can make this industry flourish, but at the same time bring in more norms where these kind of minutes which are there can be curtailed, but the industry should not be shut. I think they were been trying to do that from very long, and it could not be done. Had that been the scenario, people have continued. But I'll give you one example. Game of chance, what people used to do, they will continue with game of chance, but at the last, when you have to take the money out, you have to say, what is 2 plus 2? You will say 4. Okay, fine. What is this color? You say yellow, then you can go. So they say there is a skill involved into it. This is not skill. So they were misusing that part which was being there and looking into it, and how this industry got widened, and the negative impact is where the government has acted. And I think maybe in the near future something can come up, but this has been one of the best moves by the country, which I see others to follow.
All right. I'm going to come to my final and my last cultural question, right? fantasy sports in particular had become intertwined with cricket, sponsorships, fan engagement. Aditya Mishra, do you see this ban stalling India's broader digital innovation story from esports to sports tech, which were piggybacking on this momentum?
No, no, not at all. I think there will be esports, there will be sports tech, and it's going to flourish. Believe me, today the real companies who are innovative, who are really creating value for their consumers. What consumers today need is entertainment, then through sports. So this value proposition is going to stay all along for the next foreseeable future. So a company who can create a value, who can think of a solution along this is going to flourish. It's just a temporary period. Companies are going to repivot and figure out ways in which entertainment in a very social way can happen, and people are going to really enjoy this. They're going to create value. Our government is going to get GST out of that value, which will be created. I don't see this at all as setback. Rather, this is something which will open new ideas, new innovation, new doors, and new possibilities. And maybe some of our companies will actually go global and offer this. India, of course, is a very large market, but apart from India, there are a very large market outside as well. Many more unicorns are probably going to take place in this particular segment.
All right, Aditya Mishra, Sachin Taparia and Khushbu, thank you so much for a fantastic discussion on a topic that is gaining traction, it's gaining momentum, and hopefully will spark a lot more innovation. As we've seen some, I won't call it a disruption like Khushbu rightly pointed out, a tweak to the industry. So thanks so much for joining me on this discussion. So here's where we stand this evening. On one side, a government that's determined to safeguard citizens from addiction, fraud and financial ruin. On the other, an industry that's created jobs, fueled fintech adoption and promised billions in revenue. And caught in the middle, allied businesses are now facing uncertainty from payments to advertising to tech services. The question isn't just about banning gaming, it's about how we balance innovation with protection and growth with governance. The answer will shape not just this sector, but the confidence of every emerging industry in the country. I'm Sanjana, and this was The Big Question. Good night.